Well, I've finished those 30 lessons that I said I was going to do on the kind of introduction and basics of Christianity. And I thought I'd have a little fun today. You know, I wrote a post this morning about how a 70-year-old man looks at a woman. And I used the analogy of a refrigerator. The outside being the body, the inside being the soul, and that secret compartment that contains her spirit. A lot of divorces happening today. And a lot of young people don't know how to, or what to look for in a mate. I'm going to show you right now the biblical process for selecting a mate or determining whether that person would be a good match for you or not. You know, I got a putter in my hand. Oh, by the way, I'm getting ready to go play tennis. As soon as it's done, the weather suddenly changed. So it's cold. I've been outside painting. I've been doing a lot of stuff. But I thought I'd do this for you. I'd have a little fun. And take a lot of what I say right now tongue-in-cheek, because I tend to over-exaggerate and be facetious at times. And sometimes I'll be pulling and yanking your chain, and you won't even know it. Okay? But I got a putter in my hand. Okay? Now, among golfers, they say that picking a putter is like picking a wife, because they have unique features to it. This is more like a mallet. Notice it's curved here at the end. It's got a certain length, a certain kind of grip. It weighs a certain amount. The aesthetics is pleasing to me. So in many ways, that's how men today, or even women, select a mate, just looking at the shell. Let me tell you something. There is so much more to consider. And I'll start off with a warning. And the Bible makes it really clear not to be unequally yoked. Okay? I'm going to use my putter as a stick. To be unequally yoked means that you're with somebody and they're pulling in one direction and you're pulling in another direction. You're not a team. You often hear of couples that as they are in marriage, they tend to grow apart. They fell in love, now they seem to be falling out of love. They're moving in different directions and they end up getting divorced. Okay? And the reason for that is because their focus wasn't on Christ. All it takes is one person of the couple to pull in the wrong direction, and that marriage is ending towards dissolution. Okay? You don't want that to happen. I pray, if you got young people in your house right now, or they're single, you need to watch this. Okay? Because I'm going to teach you some things that are so important, and a lot of things that they don't consider. You have people, they spend thousands of dollars for the wedding, but nothing in determining what I should have and look for in a mate. Okay? Okay, now, body. You know, guys are different than women. Okay, guys are very visually oriented. So typically the first thing they see is the body. And God has made all kinds of different types of bodies. He's made some that are big, round, and jovial. Others that are thin, and no matter how much they eat, they're never going to gain any weight. You got others that have more of a pyramid shape, and that can go from the top down or bottom up. And others that are more well-rounded. You know, there's actually terms in golf that we use to determine different types of endorphin and something like that, body shapes, okay, that people have. And some people are more attracted to a certain kind of body shape than others. And people come with all kinds of different, and then people tend to change their body shapes. I recently saw a picture of a woman who had put a bunch of rings on her neck to elongate her neck. You know, and then I saw that there was a culture, a religious group of people that did that. I know in China, 100 some years ago, the women used to make their feet real small. In Japan, they try to make their skin as white as they can. They can go outside, if it's sunshine, they got an umbrella. Okay, so you'll have people that today, the trend is white, and you've got these beautiful women that put marks all over their body, tattoos and ornaments through their nose and through their lips and through their navel and through their ears, and some have them through their cheeks, you know, and they're trying to change the way they look. The problem with that is most of them are focused on the external. Okay, so if there's that refrigerator they look at, that's all you're seeing. Okay, that doesn't last very long. Now, everybody is born with a certain type of body shape. And at that point, God also gives them certain talents like athleticism, artistic, which includes music, or maybe they're more intellectual. Some have a combination of all three, okay? But that's in the sense of the body. That's the shell that contains the soul, okay? So, and in the body, you have all different kinds of colors. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious. You cut them open, boy, that blood sure goes red. We come in all kinds of shapes. We come in all kinds of colors. I remember when I was growing up, they even had me to write down whether I was black or white. And I said, well, I'm not either one. Brown. Okay, so I would cross those out and write that down. Are you Anglo or are you black? Well, I'm not either one of them. I'm Italian and I'm Hispanic. Okay, so, you know, people want to tend to stereotype you. The fact of the matter is we're all of one flesh, you know, of one or two genders, male or female. Okay, now, they may say today that, well, you're binary, or they come up with all these terms, you're transgender here and all. The fact of the matter is you're either male or female. You can say whatever you want. But God made us of one flesh and to reproduce after our own kind. We're not animals, okay? Animals have an intellect, they have a soul, but they don't have a spirit like we do, okay? They weren't made in the image of God as you and I do, and we have will, intellect, and emotions. Okay, so that's the body. Okay, next, you open up that refrigerator door. Okay, now I want to look inside. I want to see what's inside that shell, okay? And that's the soul. And I tend to find when I meet people or women, I tend to find one of three characteristics. Either they're happy, you know, good nature, very positive, or they're very pessimistic, angry, bitter, a continual victim. And then some I meet that are just kind of there. They're not the sharpest knives in the drawer, but they're not offensive either, you know. And, you know, sometimes it's better to be with one of those. But I know the Bible has a lot to say about this kind of woman, you know. It's just, you know, that nags and nags like a dripping faucet, drip, drip. And even says, hey, if you go to the Proverbs, it's better to live in the corner of a roof than with a nagging wife, you know. And so we got to consider their soul. What are they like? And what has gone into making them who they are? That's their personality, okay? And generally they tend to be either introvert or extrovert. Some are a little more balanced. What is an introvert? An introvert is someone that likes to spend alone time. He gets his energy, he gets fired up by being alone. His battery gets recharged. The extroverts are the opposite. They got to be with people. You get them off and alone to them, man, and they just dry out. They got to be with people. And so you have a balance there. And in developing the soul, thing to look for in a mate, first of all, is their culture. How are they raised? Okay? In their culture, they're going to have a certain preference in their development for music. For instance, I wouldn't do well if I had a mate that listened to country and western music. Oh, God, I said, man, please turn that off. It is so depressing. She ran off with his best friend and they're drinking in the back of his pickup and, and all this other stuff. And I cut that out. I don't want to listen to it. Now, I'm a country boy. He would love that stuff, while he's chewing on a long straw, or chewing tobacco. That would turn me off right away. As soon as they put on that music, I'm done. Okay? Language. You got language barriers. How they were raised, how they talk, how they address things. Okay? Traditions, which are huge, especially in Latin families, the European families. Where they carry and follow traditions like in Christmas and Thanksgiving, birthdays and different celebrations and so forth, and others could care less about them, okay? So in the culture is that convictions, things that they will go to the mat for, and other things that, aren't really important. Their character development, whether they have courage, whether they tend to worry a lot, whether they are willing to go that extra mile, whether they're other-centered or self-centered, narcissistic. All that goes into what's in the person's soul. What kind of experiences have they had? Were they raised rich? Were they raised poor? Middle class? What kind of schools did they go to? For instance, me, I was raised in a military home. So I've lived in many different countries, and we are a subculture of our own. Everybody that has been raised that way have certain dynamics in their lives that other people don't have. Okay? So all those things go into considering a mate. First, the body, what's appealing to you, whether they do the kind of things that interest you, whether it's through athletics or art, music, culture. What are they like? Are they introvert? Are they extrovert? Okay, so you go to the refrigerator, you look at it, hey man, this is appealing to me, I want to check this out. And you open the door and take a look inside. Hey, man, this thing is empty. There's not a lot there. Or it may be full, but it's a mess. Okay? Or it may have full and it has everything in order, everything's marked, everything's neat. But it's all dry, it's all vegan. Okay, and you have another one, hey, this is exotic. You got a lot of different potential for a lot of interesting, juicy meals in here. Okay, now you're getting more pulled into that refrigerator. I think I'm gonna take a deeper look now. I'm looking. You know what I see? I see a secret compartment. I'm gonna open that up. You know what that is? And most importantly, her spirit. Her spirit, her relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. See, people don't consider that. It's so stupid. Look, it says not to be unequally yoked. If you hang out, my grandmother did this. And I have pictures of it all. My grandfather was very charming, very successful, very macho, and my grandmother fell for that. Didn't consider his spirit. And she suffered all her life. And you know what? That passed down to her children and her children's children. Okay? Because of habit, because of tradition, because of experiences, because of culture. He was an unbeliever. He didn't get saved until the last year of his life. And one of my uncles led him to the Lord. Okay? How many years, because she had been spared, had she just honored the Lord and did the right thing and waited and trusted on him to bring her the mate of his choosing. Okay? But, a young girl, she wants to get out of the house. She wants to go on her own way. She's ready to, blaze the trail and all that. And how many of them make that mistake early on, only to regret it? Some stay, they got a lot of determination, commitment, and for the sake of the kids, they ride that, and for the sake, hey, I'm committed to this, the long haul, and I honor that, admire that, and others bail. And today a lot of them bail. Okay, you got to consider the spirit. Now, the spirit's a whole different thing, because now you're developing things that others don't develop. Okay, when you're born again, you get a new nature. And one of two things happens. Either you are spiritual or you become carnal. A carnal person isn't much different than somebody that isn't saved, except they're saved. And they have certain gifts that God has given them. They just don't use them, and so they become dormant. Okay, so I always look for someone not that's just born again, but someone that's functioning as a spiritual person, not a religious person. I can tell the difference right away. I had this one girl to come to visit with me at my home from Bible college. It was during Christmas time. 2 girls came. And my Christian family that I had with my aunts and uncles, and they came to see him in the mission and all that. And I took them down to the Riverwalk to get on a boat. And one of the boats that we were going to get on to go on the Riverwalk was Santa Claus. Well, she refused to get on the boat. Why? Refused to get on? Santa Claus, he's a pagan goddess or something. I can't remember. Just a guy in a red suit. Let's get on the boat so we can go up there and see the lights. She wouldn't do it. Ruined our evening that night. She was religious, not spiritual. Okay, because if she was spiritual, she got in the boat and witnessed it in that Santa Claus suit. Okay, but so there's a difference. Okay, and I know right away, whether someone's religious or truly spiritual. Okay, in other words, the Holy Spirit has ruined their lives. And I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, as a spiritual person, they got gifts that are given to them for the edification and mutual edification of the church, the body of Jesus Christ, and a variety of gifts: teaching, music, hospitality, giving, all these variety of gifts that are used to make the body healthy. How many of you have gotten married or looking for a mate and haven't considered what kind of spiritual gift they have? I don't know of any public school that trains you to how to use that gift, okay? Yet that gift doesn't just stay as it is. It needs to be matured and developed. For instance, if I had the gift of teaching, and I do, but I don't have anything to teach, I'm going to be frustrated. Or I'm going to be an echo. In other words, I'm only telling you what I hear from somebody else say, like a parrot. Okay? God doesn't want that. He wants original thoughts. Okay? So you got to consider what kind of spiritual gifts they have. Okay? Now, if they don't know what it is, well, you're probably immature. Very young Christian. They also have values. Let me tell you something. That is the thing where Christian couples get divorced. Now, even though they're born again, they're believers, they have a different value system when it comes to money, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to priorities, when it comes to how to spend their time, especially when the kids get older. And that's where a lot of people don't think you have to spend a lot of time. What are your values? What are things you live for? Okay? What do you think about schooling and education? What do you think about disciplining your children? What do you think about spending time with your in-laws? All those are values. And so you got to be very careful. Even if a person is a believer, you still have to. Some guys that are, they still living with their mamas. They may be married, but they're married more to their mother. Okay? Well, the Bible makes it really clear. You leave and cleave. You create a new identity with a new family. Okay? Well, you got involvement with your family into your immediate family that you now have created, major problems. Okay, so values are really, really important. I'm not looking for someone spiritual, but someone that shares the same values as me. Okay, next thing. Passion. What do you have a passion for? What motivates you? What drives you? Okay, missions, evangelism, or external things. I know what drives me, but what drives you? What do you have really that you would do for free? Okay, so that's another thing to consider. The other is maturity. What maturity level do they have? Are they stoic? Are they still the same person they were when they were in grade school? Have they grown with the Lord? I've been very fortunate to have had some very godly Christian women as mentors for me. First and foremost was my grandmother, and then my Aunt Linda. Two godly women. And then the Lord, through His grace, brought in Dr. Elsie Fix into my life for 30 years. And they were the epitome of everything that I admire in a woman. Okay? Now, of course, they weren't for a mate, but they were the kind of women that really measured up on this area, especially in the last, and that is with wisdom. The ability to see life from God's vantage point and apply practical counsel and advice to difficult situations. You could go to them anytime, day or night, and say, hey, look, as I would do with Miss Elsie, are you awake? I got a question for you. What do you think about this? And she'd sit up and we'd start talking. And to have that kind of dialogue with a mate, that you can talk to them about deep spiritual things. Could you imagine if you're a believer and you're spiritual and your mate has no passion or interest in spiritual things? You don't share the same values, passion, wisdom. You have different kind of experiences, different types of upgrowing. Very difficult. Now, if I was to select someone, if I had my own choice, and I look at all these different body shapes, I know one thing, that the majority of women in America today spend an enormous amount of time and money developing the externals. Okay? You can't fall in love with a shell. If you did, it's at best infatuation. It's not real love. And if it's infatuation, what you fell in love with, you can fall out of love with. Because I can tell you this for a fact, at 70 years old, this body shape begins to change and it begins to decay. And it begins to get old and wrinkled and slow and painful. It won't last. Not only that, and I know a lot of women, especially women, whose husbands went after them for that because that's what they had made an appeal to them for, and they started to lose that, and here came along someone that was a little younger, a little better looking, and what happened? Dumped her and went off with a new one. Okay? Yet you see the majority of women in America spend an enormous amount of time and money developing this, when the most important thing they can develop is this, which in turn will enhance their soul, is their spiritual quality. God is an interesting, precious in the sight of the Lord is a woman who has a gentle and quiet spirit. I read it, Proverbs 31, the characteristics of a hard-working woman, looking after the interests of her servants and her children, thinking about tomorrow and planning for the future in terms of priorities. Her values are intact. Her husband is welcome at the gate and praised because, oh, that's your wife, man, you're one lucky guy, you know? And so, on the other hand, you got those, I have guys that I know, that I golf with, that can't stand their wives. Their wives are a thorn in their flesh. Okay? I know one guy goes home and gets drunk every night. It's the only way he can put up with his wife. And can you imagine, what kind of life is that? You know? Or she has a religion that's different than Christianity, and you all really can't talk about deep things that really matter to you, like purpose, like eternity. You can't pray together. You can't share scripture together. There isn't any depth of your soul together. When trials and journeys come, there isn't any, real battle. We got to work through this. Really sad. I wish I knew this when I was younger. I didn't. I made a lot of mistakes. I tended to look at this, to become very disappointed, and that's especially with this, and then to recognize that, hey, that really wasn't what God wanted for me. Listen, let me just tell you this. I honestly believe in all my heart that God's design is for everybody to have somebody. But you have to let him decide who, when, where, and you cannot violate his standard in that process. If you try to hurry and put, and try to run ahead of God, you're going to be very disappointed, as a lot of people are. You're going to be stuck in a no-end marriage with a no-end mate, being unequally yoked, going different directions. So at 70 years old, a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience. And I tell this for the young people, young men, young women, prepare yourself. The Bible describes you as a jewel, as a treasure worth finding for the right guy if you develop your body, soul, and especially your spirit. If not, and you just go out there and you want to go to bars, let some guy pick you up tonight, go home on a one-night stand, okay, so you be used. Guys, you go and do that. You know what the Bible says that? Is that you have become like a loaf of bread, consume and spit out. That what you want? Okay, so this is determination, discipline, direction, devotion. Takes a lot of thought, a lot of prayer. Your parents probably praying for this. I'm praying for this. Stay on the right track. Select person with the body, soul, and spirit of your choosing, the way you see someone that fits for you, and make it work so that you will complete each other, not compete with each other, or you're going to end up splitting. God bless you all. I'm going to play tennis.